The mission that changed everything. Rain sliced through the sky like falling knives, and Kale's silver wings struggled against the wind as he flew over the jungle trees. His mission was simple: search the crash site, confirm no survivors, and return to base. But what he saw through the smoke changed everything. A small escape pod was wedged between broken tree trunks, steam hissing from its vents, and something or someone was moving inside it. Kale landed softly, boots sinking into the muddy forest floor, wings folding behind him. He activated his helmet scanner and stepped closer. Inside the pod was a girl, not human, but alien, curled. In pain, blood flowing from a wound on her side, her strange violet skin glowing faintly under the scanner light. Kale froze, heart pounding. She looked up at him with wide silver eyes, terrified, weak, and unable to speak. He heard the voice of his commanding officer through his earpiece, barking, "No contact with alien life forms. Cadet, report back. Mission complete." Kale stepped back, torn between duty and instinct. She tried to reach for him, then collapsed. Something inside Kale snapped like a breaking chain he shut off. His comes and moved forward, lifting her carefully in his arms. Feeling her shiver as her blood stained his uniform, he looked around. Knowing he had just made a choice that would cost him everything, with one powerful jump, Kale lifted into the air, cradling her close. Using the tree cover to stay hidden as he flew toward the old ruins beyond the border training zone, the ancient structure was abandoned, built from stone and forgotten by the academy. He laid her down on a stone bench and opened his medkit. Her breathing was shallow, and he had no idea what her biology needed. Still, he cleaned the wound and sealed it with a universal field patch, whispering to her softly, "Stay alive, I'm not going to leave you." She blinked slowly, eyes locking with his, and for a moment, the fear faded. 2 hours later, the sky darkened as academy drones began circling the crash site. Kale hid deeper in the ruins. Watching silently, they scanned the area, found nothing, and flew off. Kale turned back to her, realizing she was now fully asleep, chest rising and falling slowly. He had no idea who she was or why she crashed here, but he knew she wasn't dangerous, not to him, not in that state the next morning. Kale tried to return to base quietly, hoping no one would ask questions. But as soon as he stepped onto the landing deck, 2 guards grabbed his arms. "Cadet Kale, you are under arrest for breaking protocol and aiding an enemy." He didn't resist. Inside the tribunal chamber, Kale stood alone. Wings chained, helmet removed, the high officers looked down at him with cold eyes. "Do you deny aiding a hostile species?" the lead judge asked. "I don't know if she's hostile," Kale answered calmly. "But she was bleeding and helpless. I couldn't just leave her to die." A murmur spread through the room. But the commander slammed his fist down. "This is not compassion training, cadet. You were told to observe and report, not to disobey orders." Kale didn't speak again. They stripped him of his flight badge, erased his name from the cadet registry, and expelled him permanently. His wings would not be clipped. They left him that mercy, but he could never again wear the Skyblade uniform as he walked out of the chamber. Heads turned away from him. Friends no longer met his eyes. His name was now a whisper, a warning, a disgrace. By nightfall, Kale packed what little he had and flew toward the edge of the known lands. He settled in the ruins, away from the cities, alone. But when he arrived, he wasn't alone anymore. She was there standing at the entrance, wrapped in an old blanket. He left behind Lura, the alien girl, had followed him. She didn't speak his language. But when she stepped forward and placed her hand on his chest, Kale understood. She remembered what he did, and she chose to stay. Kale sighed and opened the door wider. Letting her in, knowing his life was no longer what it used to be, he was no longer a cadet, no longer a hero to his people, but somehow, with her near him, he didn't feel lost. Not anymore. Expelled and exiled, the guards cut Kale's wing restraints. But the weight of shame pressed harder than chains as he stepped out of the tribunal chamber. The doors slammed shut behind him with a sound like judgment itself. Rain fell again, just like the night he had first seen her. But this time there was no mission, no command, no purpose. He was no longer Skyblade Cadet KL. He was nothing. A group of younger students stood nearby under shelter, whispering and pointing, eyes filled with fear, not respect. His old squad leader Breck walked past him without a glance, as if Kale had never existed. His wings still worked. But what good were wings without a sky to call home? Kale didn't return to the barracks. Instead, he flew straight into the mountains, the freezing wind slicing his face. He didn't cry. His training taught him to control pain, but something inside him cracked in silence by nightfall. He reached the same broken structure where he had left Hertha, alien girl with violet skin and glowing eyes. To his shock, she was still there, sitting quietly near the fire pit, waiting for him. He landed hard, boots scraping the stone, but she didn't flinch. Laura looked up, her face calm, then pointed to the sky and made a circle with her hands. Kale didn't understand her words, but the gesture was clear. She was asking why he had come back. He dropped his bag beside the wall and sat down. Finally speaking, voice low, "They took everything from me." She tilted her head, then reached forward and touched the metal badge. On his chest, the one now scratched and worthless, Kale stared at the fire. "Because I saved you." Laura said nothing, but her silver eyes softened as she reached out and offered him a half-broken fruit she had picked nearby. They ate in silence, the wind howling outside. The next morning, Kale began building shelter with spare metal sheets and salvage from the training zone. Laura helped, her hands delicate but precise. Though she couldn't speak his language yet, she learned quickly, mimicking his words, repeating them like a songstone. She whispered, "Holding one roof," she said proudly after helping him place a beam. They became a team, slow but steady. Sometimes they laughed, sometimes they worked. For hours in silence, she would hum strange melodies while gathering plants. And Kale would listen quietly, eyes half closed, one evening. While adjusting a solar panel, Kale heard the sound of low humming far above. He turned sharply and looked to the sky. An academy drone, silver and silent, scanning the valley. Kale grabbed Laura and pulled her into the shadows beneath the stone overhang. Holding her close as the drone passed over, she trembled in his arms, and Kale realized she was still being hunted. Even after he lost everything, they would never stop chasing her. That night, Kale couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling and whispered, "Why did I do it?" Laura, who had been curled up on the opposite side of the room, moved closer, reaching out to gently touch the feathers of his wing. "Kale," she whispered his name for the first time. Perfectly, clearly, without mistake. He froze, startled, then turned toward her. She looked into his eyes, and for the first time, he didn't feel like an exile. He felt like something more. The days passed and their shelter became a home. Kale taught her more words, and she taught him strange dances, rituals of her people. He asked her once why she followed him back from the ruins, and she only smiled and said one word, "Bond." Kale didn't ask again, but sometimes, in the quiet moments, he found himself watching her too long, wondering if that word meant more than just survival. Then came the day Kale saw movement on the mountain, rigid black silhouette with familiar gear. His blood ran cold. He knew that stance, that armor Skyblade trackers. He pulled Laura inside, eyes hard, voice steady. "We have to move. They found us." She didn't argue, didn't panic, only nodded. But Kale knew deep in his bones this was only the beginning. They would not let her go, and now they would never stop hunting him either, because he had chosen to save her, because he had chosen her over everything else. Learning each other's scars, Kale woke in a cold sweat, wings twitching, breath uneven. He had dreamt of fire metal skies breaking apart, screaming orders in his ear, and her, Laura, slipping through his fingers into the void. When he sat up, heart pounding, he wasn't alone. Laura sat across from him, legs folded, eyes closed, a dim light glowing from the lines on her skin. She was humming, but not like before. This time, her voice echoed through the stone walls in a way that made his bones feel lighter. It wasn't music, it was memory. Kale didn't speak, just watched as her light pulsed with every breath, soft and sad like a heartbeat slowing down. Then she opened her eyes and whispered something he didn't understand. He leaned forward. What did you say? She pressed her fingers to her chest and said it again, slower this time. Intari. Kale repeated it, confused Intari. She nodded, then moved her fingers to touch his chest gently. You are Intari. Kale paused, unsure whether to laugh or be afraid. What does it mean? He asked quietly. She smiled faintly and said, The one who broke fate. Kale didn't ask again. But the words stayed in his mind for hours. The next day they began to teach each other. Kale carved words into stone, showing her the human names. For think sky, tree, wing, danger, friend. In return, Lura showed him symbols of her people, drawn in the dirt. Sharp and curved like the language of wind. Each one carried more than meaning, it carried feeling. One afternoon, while gathering moss near the cliffside, Kale found an old Academy med drone, caught in vines. It had been watching, transmitting, possibly even recording. He smashed it with a rock, hands trembling, then burned the remains in silence. When he returned, Lura was gone. Panic gripped his throat as he searched through the ruins, calling her name, his voice echoing in the wind. He found her down by the river, standing in the water, arms open, scars along her back glowing like stars beneath her skin. She turned as he approached, and without speaking, she stepped toward him and pressed her palm to his. Kale noticed her hand was shaking. She guided his fingers across the scars on her back, letting him feel them, slowly, carefully. Each mark was deep, old, and shaped like symbols branded into her by force, not nature. Kale's hands curled into fists, his jaw clenched, but he didn't pull away. Lura looked at him and whispered, My people did this. When I refused to fight, when I chose peace. Kale's voice cracked. They punished you for mercy. She nodded slowly. And your people punished you for saving me. They stood there. In silence, skin and feathers damp from river mist, to outcasts shaped by cruelty and choice, Kale spoke softly. We both carry scars, Lura. But I'd rather carry mine with you than hide them alone. Lura touched her forehead to his and whispered, in her native tongue, words that sounded like stars falling. That night, they sat close by the fire, their hands brushing from time to time. Kale didn't move away, and Lura didn't pretend it was by accident. Later, Kale began to feel dizzy, the air around him thick like fog. He stumbled toward the bed, breathing heavy. Lura rushed to his side, her hands glowing, panic rising in her voice. Poison, she muttered. Scanning him with a small crystal device she had hidden in her cloak, Kale blinked slowly, barely able to lift his hand. Then he remembered the med drone, the broken circuits, the gas release that might have activated when he crushed it. I didn't think it was armed, he mumbled. Lura leaned over him, chanting something as her glowing fingers pressed against his temple. Suddenly, Kale felt warmth flood his veins, a strange energy, not painful but powerful. He gasped, color returning to his face, breath steadying. Lura looked down at him, eyes wet, whispering, You saved me, now I save you. Kale managed a faint smile. We're even then? But Lura shook her head slowly, her voice firm. No, we are bonded now. Kale didn't understand all her customs, but the way she said it made something in his chest tighten. Not with fear, something warmer, something dangerous that night. As the fire crackled and the stars blinked above the broken ceiling, Kale closed his eyes with Lura beside him. He had been thrown out of the academy, branded a traitor, hunted by his own people, but lying there beside the alien girl he once saved. Kale realized something strange and beautiful. He didn't miss the academy. Not at all. Asterisk. The hunter from the skies. Asterisk. Kale woke to silence, and that scared him more than alarms ever did. For weeks, the forest around their ruined shelter had been alive, birds calling, wind rustling leaves, insects humming near the river. But today, everything was quiet. Too quiet. He stepped outside with his blade strapped to his side, wings tucked tight, eyes scanning the tree line. Then he saw it just for a second, a flash of silver armor on the high ridge. Gone in an instant. Someone was watching them. Kale rushed back into the shelter, heart pounding like war drums. Lura was already awake. crouched beside the fire with her weapon in hand, a curved blade humming faintly with alien energy. She met his eyes and said one word in a low voice. Skyblade. Cale felt a chill run through his bones. Only one type of soldier would track this far into exile to find them Skyblade hunters, trained to capture or kill deserters like him. And aliens like her? He looked out the narrow window carved between two stones. We don't have much time. They'll circle around before dark, Lura asked. We run. Cale shook his head slowly. Not this time if we run. They'll never stop. We end it here. Lura didn't argue. She simply nodded. And Cale knew then she trusted him completely. He spent the day setting traps using the old academy field. Guide, stringing monofilament lines across the upper trees, and placing sound lures near the east edge. Lura carved marks into the stones with her glowing blade, symbols of protection from her people, whispered in her strange tongue as night fell. Mist crawled in from the cliffs and Cale waited with his back against the stone wall, Lura beside him, her head resting near his shoulder. I know who it is, he whispered, the one hunting us. I recognize the stance, the silence, the pattern. It's Commander Vex. Lura's breath caught. The one who judged you? Cale nodded. He was always jealous of my wingspan, always called me too soft for war. Lyra touched his hand gently. You are not soft, Cale. You are strong in the right way. Before Cale could reply, a sharp click echoed through the forest then. Silence again. Cale raised his weapon slowly. They're here. The first attack came from the tree line, a stun bolt, fast and blue, missed Lura's head by inches. Cale leaped into the air, wings snapping open with a fierce rustle, drawing their fire away from the shelter. 3 Skyblade hunters emerged from the shadows, faces hidden behind chrome visors. Cale dove toward them with speed learned from years of battle drills, blade clashing against theirs midair. Sparks flying in every direction, Lura stepped from the shadows behind them, slicing through their leg guards with precision. It's moving like liquid flame, but then a figure dropped from above, heavier, darker and slower, Commander Vex. His armor was heavier now, reinforced, wings longer, modified. You look small without your badge. Traitor, Vex sneered, raising his heavy shock blade. Cale didn't speak. He charged. Rage and instinct guiding him, their blades collided with a crack of thunder, each swing echoing through the trees. Vex was stronger, but Cale was faster more. Desperate, he ducked, rolled, sliced upward, cutting into Vex's armor. Sparks flying, but then Vex slammed a boot into Cale's chest, knocking him down the ridge. Cale crashed through branches and landed hard, coughing blood, wings twisted beneath him. Vex leapt down to finish it and lonely to stop when Lura stood between them, her blade pointed at his chest. Move, Vex growled. You don't matter. She didn't move. Instead, she raised her hand, glowing symbols lighting up along her arm, and spoke in her native tongue command. A warning and a curse. Vex hesitated just a moment, and that was all Cale needed. With a cry, he launched from the ground, using all his strength to tackle Vex midair, sending them both crashing into a stone pillar. Cale slammed his fist into the exposed part of Vex's visor, cracking it. He stood slowly, bleeding and panting. As Vex lay stunned at his feet, the other hunters were gone, fled or unconscious. Lura ran to Cale's side. Touching his cheek, whispering something gentle, Cale chuckled bitterly. I think I broke a rib. Lura placed her forehead to his and smiled. But you broke him more. They didn't stay in the shelter after that night. They burned it, leaving nothing for the next tracker to find. As they flew together under the moonlight, Cale with one wing bandaged and Lura guiding him from below, a thought echoed in his mind. He wasn't running anymore. He was protecting someone worth dying for, and for the first time. That made him feel more alive than any metal ever had. The underground packed asterisk, the fire burned low in the cave, but Cale couldn't sleep. Not because of his wounds, but because of what they found before dusk. A single symbol scratched into a flat stone near the river, drawn with black ash, hidden under leaves. It wasn't Lura's mark, and it definitely wasn't Skyblade military code. Cale had seen it only once, years ago. In a forbidden data file during Academy encryption class was the sign of the Veil Pact, a name spoken like Mytha, hidden group of humans and aliens who rejected the war. He held the stone in his hand and stared at Lura. Someone knows. We're alive. Lura nodded, her silver eyes serious. They are watching that night. They kept the fire small and waited in silence. Weapons within reach. Just before dawn, a figure emerged from the fog. Hands raised, moving slow, cloaked in thick gray cloth. Kale pointed his blade at the stranger, but the man didn't flinch. Instead, he spoke in calm. Firm words. You saved the girl. That's enough for us. Lura stepped forward, lowering Kale's weapon gently, her voice steady. He speaks truth. The man introduced himself as Ren, former intelligence officer who defected after discovering the Academy's secret projects. He told them that alien captives like Lure were not being studied, they were being harvested. Their DNA used to build hybrid weapons. Kale felt his stomach twist as he listened. So that's why they sent Vex. Not to punish me, but to silence her. Ren nodded grimly. And now they've marked you both. But we can offer something they can't, a purpose worth bleeding for. Kale looked at Lura, and she looked at him. No words needed. They followed Ren through the forest trails for hours, until the trees thinned and revealed a narrow path cut into a canyon wall beyond the ridge, hidden beneath old mining tunnels. They stepped into the glow of a secret sanctuary. Dozens of species gathered in peace. Humans, insectoids, feathered avians, even aquatic beings in mobile pods, all working together to resist the Empire's lies. Kale had never seen anything like it, and for a moment, his chest filled with something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. A woman with silver hair and one cybernetic arm approached them, her voice sharp but warm. I'm Commander Issa, leader of this cell. You're the winged fool who disobeyed a kill order to save someone worth more than a medal. Kale smirked. Faintly, that sounds about right. She handed him a data pad. We need you for more than flying. We need your memory. Everything you know about Academy weaknesses, troop patterns, weapons. Kale hesitated. You want to use Lura's DNA? 2. Issa's face darkened. No. We want to stop them from using it. That's why we need you both. We're planning to raid one of their black labs 2 days from now. Lura stepped forward, her voice like ice. I escaped that lab. I will. Go back, but only to burn it down. Kale grabbed her hand and nodded. Then we're in. For the next 2 days, they trained with the rebels, learned new weapons, and studied the layout of the hidden lab where Lura had once been held. Kale was faster now, more focused, his body wounded, but his mind sharper than ever. Lura taught the rebels how to resist the energy drains used on her kind, drawing ancient symbols into their armor for protection. One evening, while sharpening a blade, Kale looked at Lura and asked softly, Why did you never tell me what they did to you in that lab? She paused, staring at the sparks as they flew off the blade's edge, then answered quietly, Because I didn't want you to see me as broken. Kale dropped the weapon and moved closer, placing his hand on her cheek. You're not broken. Lura, you're the strongest person I've ever known. Her breath caught in her throat, and she whispered, And you're the only one who ever saw me as more than a thing. That night they lay side by side, not touching, but not apart. Neither needed to speak, their bond had already been sealed through blood, fire, and choice. The next morning, Kale stood before the rebel strike team, dressed in gear that bore no insignia, no country, no rank. Only a symbol carved into the chest plate, half wing, half flame, the new mark of who he was becoming. Lura stood beside him, her eyes no longer just glowing, they burned. Commander Issa raised her hand. We strike tonight. We rescue the captives. We destroy the lab, and we leave a message. Now more monsters born from mercy? Kale looked out at the canyon, knowing the risk, the cost, the pain that would follow, but none of that mattered now. He had lost everything once, and somehow found something better, a reason to fight. A family to protect, and a girl who once fell from the stars, only to rise beside him. The rescue in the bond. The sky was pitch black when Kale took flight, his shadow slipping between clouds like a ghost with broken wings. Below him, armored transports moved silently through the canyons. carrying rebels, alien scouts, and war machines pieced together from junk and stolen tech. This wasn't a mission. Sanctioned by governments or orders from a command tower, this was a choice. A decision made by the outcasts, the forgotten, and the brave. Kale flew lower. Scanning the facility below, the place where they once tortured Lyra, the lab she fled. Covered in blood and fire, he tapped his com once. Strike team ready. Issa's voice answered, ready. Wait for the breach on the ridge. Lyra stood with her blade drawn, eyes locked on the same place that haunted her dreams. Her fingers tightened around the hilt. Her voice low. I was alone when I escaped. I won't be alone this time. Kale landed beside her, breathing hard. We're going in together, and then the sky lit up. Stolen rebel charge detonated at the northern wall, throwing metal and smoke into the air. Screams echoed from below, alarms burst to life, and panic spread through the enemy like wildfire. Kale and Lyra dove in from opposite sides, wing and flame, sword and fury. The lab was built like a cage, white walls. Clean floors, no windows, only locked doors and surveillance. Kale moved fast through the halls, dodging gunfire. Neutralizing guards with quick strikes, he slammed his shoulder into a security panel. Opening a wing of prisoner cells, inside, alien captives blinked at him in shock, some too weak to move. Others rising slowly with fear and hope in their eyes. Follow. The lights, Kale shouted, tossing glow beacons down the hall. You're free now. Go. Lyra moved deeper into the core, memory guiding her. Her breath shaky but her steps firm. She reached the chamber where they had cut her open. Where cold machines read her dreams and turned her pain into data, she sliced every terminal, every tube, every restraint, until sparks flew from the walls and systems screamed in error. Then she heard it, a soft voice, crying. She followed the sound through a side door and froze. Inside was a young girl, maybe half Lyra's age, same skin, same silver eyes, curled inside a containment pod, unconscious. Her sister Lyra didn't hesitate, smashing the lock with a single blow, cradling the small figure in her arms. I found her, she whispered into the cum. I'm coming back. Kale met her halfway down the hall, eyes wide as he saw who she carried. She's alive. Lyra nodded. She needs out now. Kale pulled a rebreather from his belt and gently placed it over the girl's face. Then took Lyra's hand. We go together. But just as they turned, a heavy metallic voice echoed through the corridor. Should have ended you in the jungle? Commander Vex stepped out of the shadows, half his face covered in cybernetics, one eye glowing red. Armor scorched from their last fight, Kale pushed Lyra behind him. Blade drawn, wings spread. You don't belong here anymore, Vex. That war is over. Vex laughed, hollow and bitter. You're wrong. The war only ends when the strong stop choosing weakness. They charged at each other like thunderclaps colliding, steel meeting steel, wings crashing against walls. Kale fought with everything left in him, body bruised, shoulder torn, blood running from his mouth. But he didn't stop. Not this time. Lyra set her sister down, kissed her forehead, then turned, eyes glowing brighter than before. She ran toward them, and with a cry, slammed her blade into the crack in Vex's armor Kale had made. The commander screamed, collapsing backward into the ruined floor. Sparks and smoke spilling from his chestplate. Kale caught Lyra as she stumbled, both of them falling to their knees. Sirens wailed louder now. Self-destruct protocols were activating. We need to leave, Lyra said, grabbing her sister, her voice trembling. Now, but Kale didn't move, his face pale. Blood soaking through his armor. I can't fly. My wings done. Lyra knelt before him, whispering something ancient in her language, holding his face in her hands. I won't lose you, she said. Then she drew a small crystal from her belt, one she had hidden since the day they met, and pressed it against his chest. The crystal glowed with fire and light, symbols flashing through the air. Kale felt warmth surge into his body, his wounds tightening, his chest burning but not. In pain? In life? What is this? He whispered. A bond, she replied, tears on her cheeks. One that keeps you with me. Always, he blinked, vision clearing, the pain fading like smoke. And when he moved, his wings flexed again whole, Strong knew. They took flight together. Lura holding her sister close, Kale leading them through the collapsing hallways. Dodging fire and falling steel, they burst into the sky just as the lab erupted behind them. Flames chasing the night, the rebels cheered below. Prisoners safe, systems burned, and one tyrant destroyed. Kale looked down at Lura as they soared above the clouds, her sister safe in her arms. Her eyes still glowing, he smiled and whispered, "You saved me again." She looked back and said softly, "Now we're more than saved, Kale. We're one." Lovers of the wind, the winds over the high cliffs howled louder than any storm Kale had faced in battle. But he stood still, armor repaired, wings spread wide. Facing the rising twin suns with fire in his heart and lured by his side, it had been 21 days since the lab fell, since Commander Vex died screaming in the dark. But peace didn't follow like a gift. It had to be built. Defended, fought for, every day since, Kale and Lura stood before councils, rebel groups. Frightened colonies and stubborn generals, they told their story not with anger, but with truth. A Skyblade who refused to kill, and an alien girl who refused to hate. Some laughed at first, others argued. But slowly, one by one, the people listened, because Kale had proof the recordings. The bodies, the survivors rescued from the lab, and Lyra's own sister, who now walked with pride in the rebel stronghold. Her name was Neri, and when she spoke of the horror she survived and the hero who came for her, no one could look away. That's when everything began to change. Former Academy pilots crossed the line and joined the rebel cells. Alien villages opened their gates to human aid, and messages flew across space like sparks from a rising flame. And in the center of it all stood Kale and Lura, bound by more than war, more than rescue, bound by a love stronger than fear. Still, the past haunted them. One evening, Kale sat alone near the edge of the canyon. Polishing the last blade he used in the raid, he felt her sit beside him without looking, her presence as calm as moonlight. Lura watched the sky in silence, then said, "You have changed the wind." Kale raised an eyebrow, smiling faintly. "The wind?" She nodded slowly. "Among my people, when someone does the impossible, you say they shifted the wind's path." "You have done that?" Kale chuckled. "I was just trying to save someone." Lura turned to face him, her voice soft. "You didn't save just me. You saved the part of me I thought was lost." He looked into her silver eyes and finally said the words he had swallowed since the day he carried her out of the jungle. "Love you, Lura." She touched her forehead to his breathing. Him in. "I loved you the moment you broke the rules to hold me." The next morning, the High Council of the Rebel Alliance called a gathering at the peak, both humans and aliens present. Their flags lowered in mutual respect. Commander Issa stepped forward with a data crystal in her hand and raised her voice for all to hear. "We declare the first unified charter between our worlds. We name Kale and Lura as our witnesses and first guardians of peace." The crowd erupted in cheers, not out of habit, but out of hope. Neri ran up to Kale and hugged him tightly, whispering, "Now they'll know the truth forever." Kale laughed, picking her up and spinning her once before placing her back beside her sister. Then Lura turned to Kale, her voice full of mischief and meaning. "Fly with me, one last time." He grinned and opened his wings wide. "Always." They leaped from the cliffside together, diving into the wind as it roared around them like a chorus of freedom. Below, the people watched, some crying, some laughing, all silent as the pair spiraled higher and higher into the skies above the clouds. Kale felt her hands slip into his, firm and certain, together. They glided through golden light, past the old scars of war, and into the breath of a new world. The Academy had called him a traitor. His own people had cast him out, but the skies no longer belonged to them. They belonged to the ones who dared to love in the face of hate, to the ones who chose mercy over metals and wings over walls. To Kale and Lura, lovers of the wind, warriors of peace, and the story that would never be forgotten.